The night I heard my sister calling my name from downstairs. She wasn't even in the house. And the sound that came from her bedroom a few seconds later is something I still can't explain. I'm 30 years old and live in a split-level house with my younger sister, Emily. She uses the downstairs apartment and I live upstairs. Separate kitchens, separate living areas, but the same front entrance. Most nights the house is quiet because Emily often stays at her boyfriend's place about 30 minutes away. Still, sometimes being alone there at night gets a little unsettling. That night I was in my living room watching a horror movie. My upstairs floor is one big open space. Living room, dining area, and kitchen all connected. And my couch sits right in the center of the room facing the TV. Which means when I'm watching something late at night, my back is facing a large, dark room behind me. Not exactly comforting when you're watching something scary. The only light came from the TV, and every time the screen flashed it threw moving shadows across the walls. More than once I caught myself glancing over my shoulder. I'd like to think I'm not the only grown man who does that when a house is completely silent. Eventually, the movie ended. I brushed my teeth, turned off the lights, and went to bed. Everything was quiet, too quiet. About 2 hours later, I woke up suddenly. I checked my phone. 1:03 a.m. At first, I didn't know why I had woken up. Then I heard it, a voice coming from downstairs. It sounded exactly like Emily. At first, it was faint, like someone talking from another room. I couldn't understand what she was saying. But I knew that voice. Still half asleep, my brain tried to rationalize it. Maybe she came home early. Maybe she was talking on the phone. Then I heard it again, clearer this time. Ryan, my name, that snapped me fully awake. I got out of bed and stepped into the hallway. The house was completely dark except for the faint glow from my phone screen. I flipped on the hallway light and walked toward the staircase. Then again, from downstairs, Ryan, her voice, exactly the same. So I called down toward the stairs. What? No response. I walked downstairs expecting to see her in the kitchen or living room, but the entire downstairs was pitch black. I ran my hand along the wall trying to find the light switch. Even before I found it, something felt wrong. The air downstairs felt colder than usual. And the house was completely silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. Finally, I found the switch. When the kitchen lights flicked on, the room slowly filled with dim yellow light, and immediately I realized something. No one was there. No Emily. No boyfriend. No movement. Just an empty apartment. I stood there confused for a moment. Maybe she stepped outside. Maybe she went to grab something from her car. But something about the place felt off, so I checked her bedroom. The door was open. The room was empty, completely empty. That uneasy feeling in my stomach got worse. I stepped back into the hallway and called her name. Emily? Nothing, just silence. Then suddenly, thud. Something hit the floor inside her bedroom, the same room I had just checked. I didn't go back in. Every instinct in my body told me not to. Instead, I turned and walked straight back up the stairs, much faster than I had come down. I locked my bedroom door and grabbed my phone. I tried calling Emily 3 times. No answer. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with me and I fell asleep. The next morning, I woke up to a text from her. "Why were you calling me at 1 a.m.? My stomach dropped. I asked if she had come home during the night. She replied almost immediately. No, I stayed at Jake's place. I didn't respond. Instead, I walked downstairs, slowly. I went straight to her bedroom. The floor was completely clear. Nothing had fallen. Nothing was out of place. There was nothing in that room that could have made that noise. To this day, I try to convince myself I must have been half asleep. Maybe I imagined it. Maybe my brain mixed sounds together. But there's something I can't explain. I heard my sister say my name. Twice. And whatever made that noise in her bedroom waited until after I had already checked the room. And sometimes late at night, when the house is quiet, I still catch myself wondering something I wish I didn't have to think about. If that voice wasn't my sister's, then what was calling me downstairs? The moment I saw the man sitting on our back deck, staring directly into my bedroom window, I realized I might not be alone in that house. And what he did next still gives me chills when I think about it. I grew up in a small town in Pennsylvania, and for a lot of my childhood, it was just me and my mom living in our house. She worked overnight shifts as a nurse at the local hospital, and my older brother had already moved away to college. So being home alone wasn't unusual for me. But one night when I was 14, something happened that completely changed how I felt about it. That night, my mom was working another overnight shift. It was a weekend, and I had invited a girl I'd been talking to over to hang out. Her name was Megan. We watched a movie in my room and talked for a while, but she had a strict curfew, so she left before it got too late. After she left, I stayed in my room watching TV from my bed. My bedroom was upstairs and looked out over our backyard and wooden deck. Everything felt normal until I heard something outside, a loud scraping sound. It sounded like one of the deck chairs being dragged across the wood. The noise was sharp enough that I immediately sat up. At first I thought maybe Megan had come back. She had only left about 10 minutes earlier. So I got up and walked over to the window. When I looked down into the backyard, I froze. Someone was sitting in one of the deck chairs, just sitting there, facing the house. For a second, my brain tried to make sense of it. "Megan," I called softly through the open window. The person slowly tilted their head up, and that's when I realized it wasn't her. It was a man. I immediately ducked down below the window so he couldn't see me anymore. My heart was pounding so hard it felt like it might give me away. I grabbed my phone and texted a few friends in our group chat. I asked if one of them was outside my house messing with me. The ones who replied all said no, and none of them lived anywhere near my house. Still hoping someone was joking, I slowly stood back up and looked outside again. The man hadn't moved. He was still sitting in the chair, still staring directly at my window. Then I heard something else, the slow creak of the deck boards shifting under his weight, like he had leaned forward slightly. That's when I realized something that made my stomach drop. He wasn't just sitting there randomly. He had been watching me. I quickly stepped away from the window and turned off the TV so my room went completely dark. Then I climbed onto my bed and pulled my knees to my chest. I didn't even want to turn my phone screen on because I was afraid he'd see the light. My bedroom window was still open too. If I moved or made a sound, he might hear me. So I sat there completely still in the darkness. Minutes passed. It felt like forever. Eventually, I started convincing myself he must have left. There was no way someone would just sit there that long. So slowly, I stood up again and walked back to the window. I looked outside, and the second I did, my stomach dropped. He was still there, still sitting in the chair, still staring up at my window, but this time I forced myself to speak. I leaned toward the window and yelled down at him, "What do you want?" That's when I noticed his shoulders shaking. At first I thought he was shivering. Then I realized he was laughing, but it wasn't normal laughter. Instead, there was this strange whistling sound coming from him, like he was laughing so hard he couldn't breathe. The sound made my skin crawl. I told him to leave. Then I stepped away from the window again. That's when everything got worse. I left my room and sat quietly at the top of the staircase, trying to listen. For a moment, there was nothing. Then I heard it, the back door. Someone was pushing against it. My whole body went cold. He wasn't just sitting outside anymore. He was trying to get inside. I ran back into my room and shut the door. A few seconds later, I heard another noise. Now the front door was rattling. He was trying both entrances. Luckily, both doors were locked. After about a minute, the noises stopped. Completely. I closed my bedroom window and pulled the curtains shut. I didn't leave my room again for the rest of the night. Not until my mom came home around 9 the next morning. When I told her everything, she got angry. Not at the man, at me, because I never called 911. And honestly, she was right. Looking back now, that was a huge mistake, because I still don't know who that man was, or how long he had been sitting on that deck watching my window. But sometimes I think about something that still makes my stomach turn. When I first heard the chair scrape across the deck, that wasn't the sound of him arriving. It was the sound of him moving closer to the house, which means he was probably already out there, watching my window, long before I ever walked over to it. The moment I saw a woman standing in my upstairs window, I realized something was very wrong, because I was home alone, and that woman definitely wasn't supposed to be inside my house. I'm 23 now, but this happened a couple years ago when I was still living with my parents in Columbus, Ohio. One afternoon, they were both out running errands, leaving me alone at the house. That wasn't unusual. I was outside in the driveway shooting basketball, just killing time. At some point, I chased the ball toward the garage and happened to glance up at the house. And that's when I saw her, a woman standing at one of the upstairs windows. She wasn't my mom, she wasn't my sister, just some random woman standing inside our house staring down at me. The second she realized I had noticed her, she stepped away from the window. For a moment, I just stood there frozen. Then adrenaline hit. I dropped the ball and ran inside the house. The window belonged to the upstairs lounge area, so I rushed straight up the stairs. But when I got there, the room was empty. I quickly checked the nearby bedrooms and the bathroom. Nothing, no sound, no movement, no one. Confused, I checked the rest of the house, living room, kitchen, even the small guest room. Still nothing. The last place left was the basement. It was small, just a couple couches, a bar, and 2 closets. I flipped on the lights and checked quickly. Both closets were empty. At that point, I just stood there trying to make sense of it, because I knew what I had seen. So I went back upstairs and shouted, "If someone's in this house, get out right now." My voice echoed through the hallway. A few minutes later, my neighbor knocked on the door asking if everything was okay. Apparently, he heard me yelling. I explained what happened. A strange woman standing at my window. He came inside and helped me check the house again. Every room, every closet, still nothing. The only explanation we could come up with was that she must have slipped out the back door. Earlier that day, I had unlocked it when I grabbed the basketball. Eventually, my neighbor left. I locked every door and called my parents to tell them what happened. They were freaked out but asked me to check that nothing had been stolen. Everything looked untouched, which honestly made it even creepier. Later that night before going to bed, I checked the house one more time. Still nothing. But falling asleep wasn't easy. Seeing a stranger inside your house staring at you from a window isn't something you forget. Eventually, I started drifting off. Then I heard something. A faint noise somewhere in my room. At first, I ignored it. The ceiling fan was running above me, so the room wasn't silent, but the sound came again. A quiet scraping sound, like fabric slowly dragging against the floor, then something else. A slow, uneven breath. My stomach tightened. Very slowly, I turned over in bed, and that's when my heart nearly stopped. A woman was crawling out from under my bed. She slowly stood up beside it. For a split second, we just stared at each other. Then I screamed. Pure instinct took over. I jumped out of bed and tackled her to the floor. I pinned her down and demanded to know who she was. Right at that moment, the doorbell rang. It was my neighbor again. I dragged the woman toward the front door while she kicked and clawed at me. Her nails dug into my arm. I still have the scars today. When I opened the door, my neighbor rushed inside and helped restrain her. That's when I called the police. While we waited, she screamed and cursed nonstop, threatening both of us. She looked completely unhinged, dirty clothes, wild eyes, shaking like she was coming off drugs. When the police arrived, one of the officers immediately recognized her. They had arrested her before for breaking into houses. They handcuffed her and put her in the back of the patrol car. Watching that car drive away was one of the most relieving moments of my life. That night, I barely slept because one thought kept running through my head. When I saw her at the upstairs window earlier that day, she had already been inside the house, which means while I searched every room, she must have been hiding somewhere the entire time. And hours later, when I finally went to sleep, she quietly crawled out from under my bed, meaning the whole night. While I thought I was alone, she was lying there in the dark, just inches beneath me. If you enjoyed this story, make sure to subscribe to Recorded After Dark for more true scary stories just like this. And if you have your own disturbing experience, feel free to share it in the comments, because some of the scariest stories ever told are the ones that actually happen.